Hi everybody, it's Richard here. I've had a few requests and sorry it's been taking me so long to get around to doing it, but yeah, I had a few requests just asking me about how I set up these cards, so to speak. So you can see on my new website I've created these cards. Obviously this is quite a basic setup for me as a website. I needed to put something up fairly quickly, so just I haven't got much time. I'll run through this very quickly. So effectively what I've done is I've created a section or row, if you want to call it a row or section, doesn't matter. But basically if I look at the navigator here, there we go. So you've got a section. Now this section is boxed because I wanted to contain the width into a single column. And what I wanted to do, or what I originally had done, is actually set it so that it had a fit to screen or minimum height. That actually didn't work very well when it came down to tablet view. When it came down to tablet view, what was happening was these sections that I had created, so this section here, then this section here, was all overlapping. So effectively what I've done now is just allowed it to sort of fill the screen as best it can, and added some padding into the section itself. So the section here is a single section with a single column. Now that's quite important. The reason being is because obviously the single column is how I put this border, this white border around the card, and it's also where I apply under border the box shadow, which creates this nice little box shadow here. I should mention that on the actual section itself, if you go under style, you'll see that I've actually applied the background. So this background image that you're seeing here is applied center to this section, but it's got a attachment of fixed. Now that's quite important because when I apply that same background in exactly the same way to the rest of these cards, you'll see that well basically the browser will just pick up the fact that it's the same background. So you'll get this nice fixed background effect. So it doesn't matter what you do on each of these sections. So it's important to obviously put the background on each of the sections as you're going down, but you want to keep it as fixed. And then obviously I'm using the size cover to keep the background looking as fresh as it can. Now, back to the columns. So once I've created the section here and I've added a bit of padding in, and I've added the background as a fixed element, the single column itself, you'll see that, again, all I'm doing is I'm asking things to align to the middle because that's just how I like it, but you don't have to do that. And then within the actual column, what I'm doing to create the content areas is basically putting what are known as inner sections, right? Now you can't layer multiple inner sections. Okay, so you can only use an inner section once. So if I wanted to create, as I've created here, a 2-column, because eventually I'll have a navigation system up here. If I wanted to create a 2-column there and then create another 2-column within those columns, I can't do it because I've already used it on the single column here. Okay, which is the main container. So yeah, so I've got a section with a single column. Single column is where I've then applied the background image, as you can see here. I've also applied the shadow, and I've also applied a 10-pixel border, white border around it to create this kind of floating card effect. And then inside the single column, I've used single inner sections to basically put the content where I want it. Now, I've created a 2-column at the top here for the logo and what will be the navigation. I've then created another inner section, but rather than being 2-column, I've just deleted one of the columns out. So I've created a single column there, and then I've used the content width as box to try and keep the content into a fixed width in a position that I want. And then obviously we're utilizing padding around in that section to push the content into a position where I want it. Again, on the actual single column itself, I was using a minimum height, but again, that wasn't working so well. So all I've done now is I've left that just to basically create the height itself based upon the content that we're putting in. So you can see underneath here, I've got a single column where I've got a title, and then obviously got a bit of animation. Then I have another section here, which is an inner section with 2 columns, and that's how I've done my side-by-side buttons. That's one of the old tricks. Obviously Elementor have updated it now, which means I could just have a single column and have 2 inline block buttons, which would be a lot better, but I've already built this, so it's fine. Excuse me. And then at the bottom here, I've created a 3-column section, which is obviously full width, so that I can put these other elements in there. I mean, that's pretty much it. I've applied that same effect then across all the other sections that I've created. So you can see there's another section here. Inside the section I have my single column. Obviously exactly the same kind of style, so it's got the border around it, it's got the border shadow, and then within that single column I've created inner sections. If I hit these here, you can see I've got inner sections here, and then I've just duplicated basically the footer area across those as well. Obviously it's a little bit limited in the sense because you're using a single column and then one inner section. Like I say, you can't put, if I wanted to put things side by side here or in here, I can't do that because I've already used an intersection already, so I can't put an intersection with an intersection. But generally speaking, that's it. This is just an SVG image that's set to full. Obviously SVG graphics are a lot more scalable, so it doesn't matter what size they look, they're always going to look quite nice. We can apply animation to those if we want to. And then the content is just basic, it's just titles, a bit of text, and a very simple button. Obviously the buttons I've got so that they are linking up so that they do the anchor animation. The way I do the anchor animation is quite simple. So each section, main section that I have, I'm adding in a CSS ID, right? So you're identifying each section. That's the introduction. This is the, if I look at this one here, advanced, that's the design section, build section, manage section, and then the let's talk section. As I say, it's quite simple. The key things about creating these kind of style of designs is the white space. Excuse me. I can't stress enough that it's nice to have white space. Don't be afraid of white space. Don't try and get everything sort of squished up against each other. When you're creating these kind of card style websites that are scrolling like this, you've got to think about how it's going to look on mobile. You've got to think about the fact that you don't really have a lot of room to play with in these little cards. So, keep it minimal. That's my best advice. Some of you have mentioned about what's here. If I open up the actual site itself, here we go. So that's what it looks like at the moment. Obviously I should say I have used Elementor's new pop-up feature to put the video in place there, which is looking quite nice. As I scroll down, so this is something that people have been asking me about a lot. So it's a chatbot, okay? It's a company called landbot.io who have come on leaps and bounds, really, and they're forever seem to be improving their chatbot facility. So the background actually comes in from chatbot itself. That's the standard one, so I do plan to sort of customize that. But the journey itself was completely built by myself, and I'm just, in essence, trying to get away from the contact forms. Contact forms are absolutely fine. There's no problem using contact forms at all. But when you have this kind of new technology available for us, it becomes more and more about the user experience. And in this instance here, this will provide quite a unique user experience. And I'm hoping once I finish this website and I'm engaging more for my target audience, which I'm not doing at the moment, I'm very generic in what I'm saying, but once I actually target my content, hopefully this will become quite a prominent feature that people will use in order to generate leads. Why use a contact form when you can use a chatbot? I personally believe in using these kind of applications and standalone platforms to help generate leads. So there you go. I hope that's given you a bit of insight. I know I've just done that very, very quickly for you. If you want me to go into a bit more detail, then obviously do get in touch via email. I don't mind, as long as I've got time in my day. I will answer any questions that you might have, but hopefully you'll see that it's actually quite a simple layout to create, and it does create quite a smart looking effect as well, especially when you have people clicking on your buttons and it's scrolling down quite nicely. Yeah, all right, thank you very much. I've been Richard Bland, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.